Welcome to Hannity. And tonight, the 2016 race continues to turn in favor of Donald Trump, with the candidate now making huge gains in the polls. Just released, Fox News national poll. It shows Trump has now closed the gap with Hillary Clinton and is now in a virtual tie, with Clinton's 1-point lead falling now within the margin of error. Also, a brand new CBS News New York Times poll. It has the race dead even for Trump and Clinton at 42% in a four-way contest. Now, the same poll shows Trump winning by 3 among the highly coveted independent voters, 42-39, which is a 9-point swing for Donald Trump since the poll last ran in July. We also have polling out of Iowa tonight. Monmouth University poll that shows that Trump has a commanding 8-point advantage in the Hawkeye state over Hillary Clinton, 45-37. And in the all-important swing state, the Buckeye state, Ohio, Suffolk University has Trump up there as well, beating Clinton 42-39. Amid the very positive poll numbers, Donald Trump has been campaigning nonstop. He was in New Hampshire earlier tonight. Here are some of the highlights.
New polls have just come out, and we're leading in many of the battleground states, and we're leading all over the country. The LA Times has us 6 points up nationwide. On November 8th, New Hampshire can be the state that pushes us over the top. We're going to win New Hampshire, and we're going to win back the White House, and we're going to make America great again. Remember that. Remember that. It's going to be a victory for the people, and especially those people who haven't had hope in a long time. That's a lot of people, believe me. What we're doing is a movement. What we're doing, you're going to be so proud of your country very, very soon. So just remember. So proud. And it is a movement, and it's a movement that everybody's talking about. Everybody's talking about it. I'm running to be the president of all Americans. Our support comes from all regions and backgrounds and all walks of life. You are the cops and soldiers, the carpenters and welders, the accountants and lawyers, young and old, rich and poor, black, white, Latino, but above all, we're all Americans, all of us together, all Americans.
And here now with reaction is the editor-in-chief of Life Zet, Fox News contributor. She's also a huge nationally syndicated radio show host. Laura Ingraham, how are you?
Great to see you.
Great to see you in New York once in a while.
I know. It's great to be here.
All right. The polls are pretty amazing. I think anybody that says they can predict with certainty how this ends in 54 days doesn't know what they're talking about. But there are real significant reasons Trump is up. I think he's made real strides in terms of taking risks. Louisiana, right. Mexico, black churches. He's going all around the country. He's got a really busy schedule. I think that's all contributed, staying on message, focused on Hillary and Obama.
I think we're seeing some of Donald Trump's heart, which is something that people needed to see. Everybody knows Trump's tough. He can throw punches. If someone hits him, he'll hit him back. He's not going to stand for America to be humiliated. He's going to be the law enforcer, rule of law guy. But he's showing more of his heart, and a little bit of humility every now and then is a good thing, too. I think that's brought some of the people back to the fold. Over the next 56 days, whatever it is, 57 days, he has to keep reassuring the country, doing exactly what he's doing. The speech today, the economic speech.
It's a good speech today.
Oh, phenomenal speech. Any conservative who watched that, and the never-Trumpers who are now just talking to themselves because they're becoming increasingly irrelevant, to watch that speech and to say, Trump's not a real conservative. I don't even know how you look at yourself in the mirror. I really don't after that speech.
I had Larry Kudlow on radio. Later we'll check in with Steve Moore. Yeah. 2 really bright guys on the economy. I mean, this is Kennedy. This is Reagan-esque. It maybe with the exception of trade.
Right.
Fair?
Well, but although I think his trade, remember, Ronald Reagan put those temporary tariffs on Harley-Davidson. George Bush put temporary tariffs on the steel imports coming in from China. So we have put tariffs on countries which are cheating under these international trade agreements. So I think that's smart and pragmatic.
Though. All right, so you got a president that will say radical Islam, one that won't.
Yeah.
You got the Supreme Court. Need I say more?
Yeah, no.
Healthcare.
That's everything.
Energy independence. Education
Tax
back
reform.
to the states.
What
Taxes
else?
today.
Obamacare gone.
Building the military up.
Right, we have to do it. What's not conservative about any of that?
That's what I was going to ask you. What is not conservative about that agenda?
Well, I think people sometimes, and we all fall into this, have a little hard time. You admit
Losing?
when you've lost or wrong or feel wounded or their pride, and pride cometh before the fall. Look, he has 88% of Republicans now supporting him. He has 70.
He needs 93.
He has 73%.
I'd be more comfortable for him for 93.
But I think you're seeing this change when he is up 8 points today in Iowa, a state that Mitt Romney lost handily. And we see him up in Nevada. We see him now up in Florida and Ohio. Remember,
Colorado?
Florida and Ohio. We haven't seen a Republican win Florida and Ohio and not win the presidency before. Not in our lifetime.
Right.
I'm pretty sure not in our lifetime, and I don't remember the last time.
Yeah,
so,
listen, he's within 3 in a state like Wisconsin.
So the trend is up. Nate Silver's polls plus today now has him at 40.8% chance of winning.
Yesterday was 31.
And Sean, remember 3 weeks ago when I was on with you? It was like 21. It's like,
Yeah.
it's a 1 in 5 chance.
By the way, he changes every day so he can say, I'm not
changes,
wrong.
and it can swing right back in Hillary's favor. He does not have a strong debate performance. He starts being distracted by side issues, and the election can slip back away from him. But right now, it's a nice trajectory, but he has to build on it. Don't get overconfident. Don't get cocky. Continue to listen to the people. His listening is actually really powerful. It's nice to be listened to. People want to be listened to.
You know, it's funny you say that because I'd go out, and obviously people know I interview him. You have the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's, what was the one thing you'd always hear? Tell him we love him, but be quiet.
Yeah.
And he's not picking fights with Gold Star dads. He's not picking fights with a judge. He's now focused on Hillary and Obama. And also, he's given pretty deep policy speeches.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, these subparts, parts, referring to statutes, particular regulations are going to repeal. I don't know, again, in the last few elections, who has been more substantive on specific policy issues that the nation cares about, from the economy, immigration, trade, and even foreign policy. So that criticism is now out the window.
You made a really good comment. I actually quoted you on my radio show yesterday about an admonition, if you will, to the never irrelevant Trumper people. But what you said is pretty deep and profound in this way. If she gets elected president, she will be unchecked.
The imperial executive.
Yeah, explain that.
Well, Hillary will have she would have appointed all the prosecutors, all the agency heads, all the judges, appellate court, district court, and probably 3 Supreme Court justices, 2 or 3.
At least.
After that, who's going to stop Hillary? When Hillary Clinton decides that the Equal Protection Clause requires a minimum standard of living, a minimum standard of education, a minimum standard of name your pick.
Well,
what does that mean?
Same thing with immigration, same thing with taxation, same thing with,
all of it.
With executive orders.
She will weaponize the government against the ordinary working class Americans.
That is really a profound reason right there.
Unchecked power. Trump will be checked by Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan is going to check Trump. I roll. By Mitch McConnell and by a court that will probably be still divided. So anyone who thinks, Trump's going to do this and that, Trump's going to have a lot to deal with in Congress, a lot of doubters.
Checks and balances.
Checks and balances. Hillary will be unchecked. How many people, raise your hand if you think the government is under Paul Ryan or Mitch McConnell is going to refuse to fund a Hillary Clinton budget and then shut the government down?
I mean, like they stopped Obama's agenda?
Yeah, they probably had a heart attack when Ted Cruz read Green Eggs and Ham that night. I mean, they were having a meltdown, like, it's embarrassing us. We're going to lose the midterm elections. And what do? We won the midterm elections. So she will be unchucked, Sean,
last
and that's scary.
My admonition to Trump on the debates is this. I don't really think they need to fill his head with facts and figures, because I think he understands these issues. I think one of the benefits of giving these policy speeches is, hey, that's prep, if you will, for debate. Yeah. The thing that I'm worried about, I don't think Hillary can run on Obama's economic record, her economic record that she wants to follow in his footsteps, or on her foreign policy record. But I think she wants to prove to the country he doesn't have the temperament to be president. So I suspect she's going to jab and poke and prod and try and irritate, agitate, hurt, upset his feelings, and make him bubble and fizz like Alka-Seltzer in water.
Absolutely right, Sean. You know what she's going to do? Let's say he starts to interrupt her. Donald, I know you're used to interrupting and cutting women off. That's not going to happen here. Right. Applause in the audience, So he's got to be careful, but he can't be timid. He has to be respectful. Remember, Reagan always, when he delivered a punch, he always gave a hug at the same time, a punch and a hug. So a little wistfulness, Reagan said, there you go again. And it was that smile and that knowing glance. And sometimes saying nothing is really powerful, and just looking at the person.
Do you
Sometimes
think
that's
he
powerful.
will have the impenetrable shield where she can't get to him? He seems to be very relaxed now on the campaign trail, very at ease, very in his zone.
I think he's getting used to not having to respond to every criticism, and that's hard. He's not a politician. He's kind of a street fighter. He's really smart, but he's used to punching back. Sometimes holding back is the strongest position to take.
Yeah,
I think
have
he's
that
learning
skill.
that. No, you punch back. That's why this is why we've been successful at what we've done.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's better to hold back a little bit and let her talk. She has no record, and just attacking him on personal grounds, which she'll do, that kind of proves our point, doesn't it?
Well said, Laura Ingraham.
Great to see you, Sean.
All right, thank you. And coming up next on this busy news night tonight here on Hannity.
Not one single idea she's got will create one net American job.
Donald Trump slamming Hillary Clinton while laying out his economic agenda. Trump's running mate, Indiana Governor Mike Pence, he's next in studio. Also later tonight.
I don't know, folks. You think Hillary would be able to stand up here for an hour and do this? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Donald Trump questions Hillary Clinton's stamina, releases new information about his health. We'll check in with our medical aid team. They have reaction. All of that and more tonight as we continue on Hannity.
Not one single idea she's got will create one net American job or create one new dollar of American wealth for our workers. The only thing she can offer is a welfare check. That's about it. Our plan will produce paychecks, and they're going to be great paychecks for millions of people now unemployed or underemployed.
That was Donald Trump earlier today taking a few little swipes at his Democratic rival while unveiling details of his economic plan. Joining us now with reaction, GOP Vice Presidential nominee, Governor Mike Pence. Governor, how are you?
I'm great, Sean.
54 days to go, and you may be the next Vice President of the United States. You gotta love these polls.
Very encouraged. Tremendous momentum. Beyond the numbers, I just see it everywhere I go.
What changed? What do you think's different?
I don't think anything's really changed. I just think Donald Trump's optimistic message to make America great again, rebuild our military, have America standing tall on the world stage, and revive this economy through all the principles he described today at the Economic Club in New York, through less taxes, less regulation, more American energy,
that was a speech I think Reagan
stronger
could give.
trade deals.
That's a Reagan economic policy. Maybe take aside the trade issue alone. Everything else is Reagan.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's not only Reagan, it's Kennedy. I mean, these were two different presidents who understood that you lower marginal tax rates, you roll back regulations, you get big government out of the way of job creators in America, and this economy will come roaring back. It did with John F. Kennedy. It did after Ronald Reagan. It'll happen again with President Trump.
And he's got two other resources available to him that neither Kennedy nor Reagan had, and that is America's vast energy resources.
It's incredible.
Coupled with new technology, horizontal drilling and fracking. I mean, you're talking about millions of high-paying jobs and careers.
That's exactly right. He talked about that today in that speech, and what really ending the war on coal and unleashing the boundless potential of the American energy economy.
You mean he doesn't want to fire every coal worker and get rid of every coal company? That was Hillary. Oh, sorry, wrong campaign.
You know, I mean, it really is amazing to think that a major party candidate actually campaigned on promising to have fewer coal mine businesses and fewer coal miners. That's exactly what Hillary Clinton said.
See, I would argue I do see a little change in Mr. Trump in this sense. I think he's more on message, very deep substantive speeches he's given on policy. He's gotten away from distractions, fighting with a judge or whatever that could take his attention away. And I also think he's taken a lot of risks that have paid off. Baton Rouge, thought he did a great job with the Matt Lauer Forum. Going to Mexico, there's a risk in doing something like that. He's going into black churches, which I love because as a conservative, I've never liked this phony label that conservatives don't care about all Americans. I find that offensive to me. And I think that, coupled with a more presidential feel to him, he seems to really hit his stride.
Well, we'll take the compliment.
You're not going to agree or disagree?
I agree that in a very real sense, I think America is seeing this man for who he is and the kind of president he'll be more clearly
See,
today.
I've known him for years. He's more natural now, more the guy I've known.
Okay. All right.
Is that fair?
Right.
That's him.
Right.
What we see now.
So you're saying it hasn't changed, it's just him.
Yeah,
and I think
he's
that's
also
my point.
combative, but I think he's adjusted for the political arena a little bit, but it's still him.
Make no mistake about it, this man's a fighter.
He's a fighter, there's no doubt.
And he's a winner, and everywhere I go, people appreciate that he can fight. But I think, to your point, what people are seeing when he went and met with President Peña Nieto.
That was a big day.
When he and I went down to Baton Rouge, and I saw him, just order the motorcade to pull over. He jumped out of the car, an unscheduled stop, put his arms around these families, walked into homes that were devastated by 9 feet of water.
It was shocking.
It was shocking.
It was, and the media ignored that story.
40,000 families out of their homes. And there he was in Mexico City, sitting with a leader in a cordial discussion with whom he has strong differences of opinion. There he was on the streets of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. There he is in African-American churches, showing his heart and his commitment to make America great again for everyone, regardless of race or creed or color or gender. What people are seeing is the kind of president that Donald Trump will be, and I think that's why you're seeing all the momentum, the turnout at the rallies, and all the momentum in all these key states around the country.
What do you say? Like, he laid out an extremely conservative agenda on the economy today. Mm-hmm. He has an extremely conservative plan. He likes originalists like Scalia and Thomas for the court.
You bet.
Education back to the states, energy independence, repeal Obamacare, replace it with free market solutions. His tax plan is conservative. What part of this alienates any conservative? Because you're as strong a conservative as I think I am, and I know people like the term nationalist populist, but the agenda itself is applying conservative principles to today's problems.
Well, I think conservatism is, in a sense, populist. I mean, Ronald Reagan, I was at the Reagan Library last week and reflected on the similarities between these two men, and I think there are many. I mean, we all remember Ronald Reagan for his strong conservative principles and the policies that he advanced. But in a very real sense, I'm old enough to remember Ronald Reagan was in every sense a man who spoke straight into the heart of everyday Americans. They call that populism.
Reagan lived conservatives for decades.
Well,
Trump kind of always knew it, but he's evolved politically, and people seem unwilling to accept that he now sees the answers based on his life experience.
Yeah, and look, I don't want to overstate it. They were two different men, two different styles, but I think at their core is the same understanding of what's made this country great. It's our freedom, it's our free market economics, it's our commitment to the Constitution, it's the arsenal of democracy, standing with our allies, standing up to our enemies. Donald Trump at his core just cherishes those same American ideals you and I cherish, Ronald Reagan cherished, and I think the vast majority of the American people
building up the military, building a wall, securing our borders, all add to that. How important are these debates, and are you ready?
I'm getting ready.
Okay.
But I know my running mate is ready.
He's chomping at the bit, I'm betting.
Well, and I honestly think he's going to bring a lifetime of experience to that stage. I think you saw that on another network last week.
He did really well in that form. You knew he won because every liberal was bashing poor Matt Lauer.
Well,
God forbid I have to defend Lauer.
Yeah, the overwhelming majority of Americans thought that he did very well. But what you saw there was someone who is confident, who's ready to lead. And I just think, this election really does come down to just a few core issues. It's about national security. It's about prosperity. It's about upholding the Constitution in the Supreme Court of the United States. And it's about upholding the highest standards of integrity in the highest office in the land. On all of those things, Donald Trump is head and shoulders over Hillary Clinton. And I think that explains why you're seeing such tremendous momentum in this campaign.
Governor, good to see you. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you, Sean.
54 days to go.
But who's counting? Who's counting?
And up next tonight, right here on Hannity.
I don't know, folks. You think Hillary would be able to stand up here for an hour and do this? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Donald Trump casting doubt about Hillary Clinton's stamina as he now releases details about his own health. We'll check in with our medical aid team, and also coming up later tonight.
Over the next 10 years, our economic team estimates that under our plan, the economy will average 3.5% growth and create a total of 25 million new jobs.
Donald Trump unveiling his full economic agenda, promising historic job creation to put you, the American people, some 95 million of you out of the labor force, back to work. Anthony Scaramucci, Steve Moore, they're here with reaction. That and more tonight on Hannity.
Oh, you think this is so easy? In this beautiful room that's 122 degrees? It is hot, and it's always hot when I perform because the crowds are so big. These rooms were not designed for this kind of a crowd. I don't know, folks. You think Hillary would be able to stand up here for an hour and do this? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Donald Trump last night calling out Hillary Clinton. Earlier today, the Trump campaign released information on the GOP nominee's health. And Mr. Trump also shared his medical history on the Dr. Oz show, which he taped yesterday. Take a look.
If a patient of mine had these records, I'd be really happy, and I'd send them on their way.
That's right.
I must say, I would have shared this earlier. Why didn't you blast this out?
I didn't think it was necessary. You know, the public's known me for a long time. They've never seen me in a hospital, okay? Yeah. And one thing, if I'm in a hospital, it's going to be out there, big league. When you're running for president, I think you have an obligation to be healthy. I just don't think you can do the work if you're not healthy. Mm-hmm. I don't think you can represent the country properly if you're not a healthy person.
Joining us now, podiatric surgeon and former research and diabetes fellow at Georgetown University, Dr. Kelly Powers is with us. And from the Fox News Medical Aid team, Dr. Mark Siegel, good to see you both. Dr. Siegel, I look at his health, looks pretty good to me. He's on a statin. He hasn't been in the hospital. He had an appendectomy at 11. Does that matter?
That certainly doesn't matter. And, you know, we got a lot of specific...
I had my tonsils out when I was in first grade. Does that matter?
You're terrific.
Yeah.
You're in good health.
I'm in good health.
But we got a lot of info today that's helpful in terms of seeing that. He has no family history of heart disease or of cancer.
Parents lived long?
Long. Father into the 80s, mother into 90s. He had a calcium score of very low in 2013. He had an echocardiogram in the heart in 2014.
Explain why the calcium issue is important, because we're talking about calcification in the arteries.
It tells you the amount of calcium that's in your coronary arteries. And if you have a lot, it's predictive that you have a heart disease. If you have a little, and both candidates have a little, it's a predictive of no heart disease. It's very unlikely he has heart disease. EKG was normal. Echocardiogram of the heart is normal. Blood pressure is low. And as you said, his cholesterol is under control. So his heart, lungs look good. Liver tests come back good. His testosterone is a little elevated, which we're not surprised to find out with all of his energy. And his prostate looks very, very good.
His PSA was really low.
Really low, which is also, again, a sign that he doesn't have any prostate trouble. His chest x-ray is normal, his thyroid function normal, liver test normal. Yeah, and
but
his weight is his only issue. 236 pounds.
He's got 15 pounds overweight.
Right.
Right.
You know, I'd like to add
Dr.
too.
Powers,
although, yeah, sure. So bottom line, Sean, that Trump is, you know, there's a few things he needs to work on. BMI, as you mentioned, Dr. Siegel, BMI is a little elevated, which indicates it's a body mass
Which indicates he's an average American, but go ahead.
Yeah. So it's a little elevated. So he could afford to lose a few pounds. He is classified under the NIH calculations as being overweight. And, you know, this does put him at risk for diabetes and heart disease. And you're right, there are a lot of Americans that have this concern. But overall, his health concerns are nowhere near Hillary Clinton's alarming medical history, such as, you know, we've talked about it before, but DVTs, CVT, memory loss, concussion, the list goes on.
I also would add, I think Dr. Powers would agree, there's something called a young 70. We don't go only by chronological age anymore. This is a young 70. It's not only what age you are, it's what kind of health
Well,
you're
like, I'm a young, whatever, 54.
Very. Well, you exercise a lot. By the way, I want him to do a little more exercise. He raises his hands a lot, but I want him to do
Everyone knows I do martial arts and boxing and hitting and punching, and, you know, you do 3 rounds on the bag, and I'm like, I'm ready. Does that mean anything, Dr. Powers?
You know, I would like to point out one thing, too. So Hillary releases her medical records yesterday, Trump today, as we saw. But I have a question. Where's the beef? Where is what we all want to see, which is her neuro evaluation? One, is this has it been done? I would think that most medical professionals would have performed a neuro evaluation and repeat MRIs to be included in that neuro eval. But Where is it? And why? Who is saying that it's not pertinent? And why hasn't it been released? That's what we want to see.
I agree with that totally, Dr. Powers. And to your point, we saw a big rundown on the pneumonia, which she's clearly recovering from.
Right.
Well, it was called non-contagious, which I don't agree with. Pneumonia is generally contagious. But we didn't see anything about that faint or that near faint and the history of faints and the history of head trauma. We did see a CT scan that was negative, but we haven't seen a lot of those records. And she just had a faint. Completely agree with that.
All right, I got to let you both go. Go ahead, Dr. Powers.
I was going to say, I think pneumonia, although serious, is becoming this red herring. We want the neuro eval. We want to see what's going on.
I want a neurological. I'd like to see an MRI of the brain.
I agree with that.
I think that would tell us a lot.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't hold your breath. If you do, it could be a very damaging medical condition. Anyway, up next tonight on Hannity.
Over the next 10 years, our economic team estimates that under our plan, the economy will average 3.5% growth and create a total of 25 million new jobs.
Donald Trump laying out his pro-growth economic agenda, promising to create 25 million new jobs. We'll check in with Anthony Scaramucci and Stephen Moore. They're here with reaction. Then later tonight.
I'm not saying Hannity or Limbaugh fit into this necessarily, but some of these figures want her to be sick. They want her to be dying. They want her to be on her deathbed. It's wishful thinking.
The Clinton News Network, Brian Stelter slandering me and Rush Limbaugh with that ridiculous lie. We'll check in with Mercedes Schlapp, Lisa Booth, and Ebony Williams here with reaction. And welcome back to Hannity. Donald Trump, he outlined his economic policy agenda earlier today right here in New York City. Here are some of those highlights.
It's time to establish a national goal of reaching 4% economic growth. Over the next 10 years, our economic team estimates that under our plan, the economy will average 3.5% growth and create a total of 25 million new jobs. Our tax plan will greatly simplify the code and reduce the number of brackets from 7 to 3. One of our greatest job creation measures is going to be our 15% business tax rate, down from the current 35% rate, a reduction of more than 40%. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America strong again. And we will make America great again.
All right, here with reaction, Trump campaign national finance member and co-host of Wall Street Week on the Fox Business Network, Anthony Scaramucci is back with us. Also, economist at the Heritage Foundation and a Trump economic advisor, Steve Moore. Guys, good to see you both. Let's go over this. Half of America doesn't pay federal income taxes now. They won't pay federal income taxes. He will drop the corporate tax rate, what, from 40 to 15%.
Yeah,
that puts us, we're nearly like Ireland at that point, right?
That's right. Right now we have the highest corporate tax in the world, so our businesses are leaving. We've seen that with Burger King, Medtronic.
I got an article right here. Ford is going to spend $1.6 billion.
They're leaving.
Ford.
And they leave, and we don't have to scratch our heads and say, why are they leaving? They tell us that we have the highest rate. If you cut that rate, I guarantee you, from 40% down to 15%, so we go from the highest to the lowest, it's going to be like a magnet. Those companies are going to come back. They're going to invest in the United States.
And this issue, I'll go to Anthony on this, of corporations, multinational corporations, parking not millions, billions, but literally maybe as high as $5 trillion overseas because the taxation rate is too high in this country. Incentivize them with a 10% rate. They bring that money back. They build factories, manufacturing centers. That means people in Flint, Michigan, Detroit, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, do they get back to work?
They not only go back to work, Sean, but the big unemployment number that people don't focus on is the U6 unemployment number. Steve can tell you that number is still 9.5%, 10%. Yeah. If you brought half of that money back, you would get that number down into the 5-6% zone, and then you really are at full employment in the country, and you'll see an explosion in wage growth for the middle class and for working class families. And that's really been the principal focus of today's speech. Let's work at the American government level for the middle class and working class families to help them create an aspirational society.
I'm a broken record. The lowest labor participation rate since the 70s, lowest home ownership rate in 51 years, worst recovery
Sean,
since the 40s.
There was another big one today. I mean, this week, the Census Bureau came out with their income and poverty statistics.
I got them right here.
There was a little bump up in income, but here's the interesting thing about that, and this is a miserable
I got it right here.
statistic.
Business Insider had it.
The average income for the middle-class family, working-class families in America today is lower today than it was in 2000.
Well, they had a
This has been no recovery at all.
And
I mean, Hillary's running around the country saying everything's
wonderful. We have
wonderful.
12 million more people on food stamps. We have 8 million more in poverty.
Still 42.5 million people in
So
poverty.
then why
this is no recovery.
So where are the conservatives on this? Where are the people that say they're conservative?
You know, Sean,
this is Reagan to me.
Yeah, it is. Look, we're going to cut taxes. Reagan did that. We're going to get rid of regulations. Reagan did that. Trump is even to the right of Reagan on school choice. You talked about this the other night. He's saying, let's take that Department of Education, that $60 billion, let's give it to the parents and the kids in the inner cities so they can go to good schools. We're going to have a pro-America energy policy. You go down the line. This is one of the most conservative. I worked for Ronald Reagan. I would say this is the candidate right now, Donald Trump, who is the most Reaganist that we've had.
Last question
since Reagan.
for Anthony.
Yeah.
Energy is great for. It's the lifeblood of our economy. Let's just be blunt. We need energy to keep everything going. Now, we're dependent on a lot of our energy sources, but we have more resources, especially with natural gas, new technologies, horizontal drilling, fracking, all these new technologies, where we could be energy independent, maybe in 4 years, and put millions of Americans to work at high-paying jobs.
Sean,
that's a big part of our potential success, isn't it?
It's not only that, Sean. I mean, it turns out that we are actually Saudi Arabia. Imagine that 40 years ago when we were talking about peak oil. So we are actually a net exporter of energy in 3 to 5 years. And what Mr. Trump is saying is we can convert that into revenues, which will not only grow GDP, but help us pay down the deficit. And so that's a brilliant part of the strategy. So
Western Europe, dependent on Ukraine and Vladimir Putin, if he turns off the spigot, they're in dire straits. We could help export to them, and that'll create more jobs here.
I just wrote a book on this called Fueling Freedom.
Oh, did you really?
It is the greatest economic
opportunity. I didn't read your book. I should have known that.
Got to get that for you. But, you know, we not only, Anthony, you're right, we can be energy independent, but I'm going to take that a step further. We can be the energy dominant country in the globe.
We could be loaded. We could be rich like the Saudis.
That's right. And think about we're talking about economics. Think about the national security. If we don't have to import the oil from the countries that are trying to kill us.
Huge.
But Hillary, by the way, her agenda is keep it in the ground. That makes no sense.
Keep it in the ground and put coal miners out of work and coal companies out of business.
She's done a good job on that.
All right, up next tonight on this busy news night on Hannity. It's called slander. Brian Stelter, the little pipsqueak who relies on Media Matters for all his talking points. He's kind of Jeff Zucker's stenographer. Anyway, he takes a shot at me and Rush. I call it slander. We'll set the record straight and get reaction from Mercedes Schlapp, Lisa Booth, and Ebony Williams straight ahead. And welcome back to Hannity. So last night, CNN host, I call him the pipsqueak, he uses Media Matters as his talking points. He's kind of Jeff Zucker's stenographer, Brian Stelter, viciously slandered and attacked me and Rush Limbaugh. Watch this.
There's a basket of legitimate questioning about Hillary Clinton's health, and some conservative commentators and media figures fit into that basket. They're right to wonder about her health in some cases. Then there's this other basket, a truly deplorable basket. Sean Hannity fits into it. So does Rush Limbaugh, Alex Jones, and others. These are people who bring up rumors and innuendo about Clinton's health and have been doing it for years. I'm not saying Hannity or Limbaugh fit into this necessarily, but some of these figures want her to be sick. They want her to be dying, want her to be on her deathbed. It's wishful thinking.
Want her sick? Want her dying? Want her on her deathbed? Well, Brian, if you'd actually do some research, I know you work for the Clinton News Network, but if you'd actually do some research, you might discover that numerous times on my radio show yesterday, I said, I wish her all the best. We only wish the best, even though we have political differences. So what you did is a lie, a smear, a slander, basically a typical CNN day. And joining us now, Washington Examiner contributor Lisa Booth, Fox News contributors Mercedes Schlapp and Ebony Williams. What am I supposed to do with that? I should sue for slander.
Yeah, well, let's go to court with them, Sean. You know,
I got better things to do.
No, but you know what? In all seriousness, though, look, you have well documented. I would challenge you to name one thing you agree with Hillary Clinton on, right? You and I have political differences.
Sure.
But I know you to be a good man.
You're coming over my side. I'm winning you over.
Your way, Sean. But no, but I know you to be a good man, and I've never known you to wish someone dead. It's actually a very nasty, undermined ploy, and I'm very disappointed and kind of disgusted. That's a lot.
You know, but Mercedes, when you really dig deep here, I mean, that's kind of the playbook that Democrats, liberals, like anybody that works at CNN do. You know, even Hillary's comment about deplorables, which he's just one-upping, I guess. He couldn't think of his own line, so he's using hers. But, you know, it's followed by these are people that will never change, irredeemable, that they're racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic. That is the narrative Democrats use every campaign, and it is a slander.
Well, it's a typical name-calling strategy that they have. And what's fascinating is with the mainstream media is they live in a bubble. They're the ultimate Washington insiders. They're the ultimate New York elitists. They don't know how to connect with the everyday Americans. And what they have spent their time doing right now is that they've criticized reporters time and time again and individuals who are just asking very simple questions on Hillary Clinton's health. Rush Limbaugh came out and said, I'm simply reporting what I'm seeing. What are we seeing? Cough fits, seizure-like behaviors. It's questions that reporters should be asking, and yet they're defending her.
It's what's on the record we've talked about, Lisa, and we see the coughing fits. We know that she claimed to the FBI she couldn't remember ever being briefed, ever, about cybersecurity. We know that she had deep vein thrombosis. We know now she has pneumonia. We saw her collapse. We know that she had some type of cerebral venal thrombosis as well. She has real conditions here, real concussion. Is it so unfair to ask doctors what they think about what's on the record? Because that's all I did, and he called that a conspiracy theory.
No, it's not, Sean, because we saw her falling to the ground in video. There's been pictures of her having difficulty getting up the stairs. And as you mentioned, she was the one, or at least in the context of the notes of the FBI, seemingly telling them that she couldn't remember things after her concussion. So there are legitimate questions there. And Sean, these individuals, these reporters had no problem questioning John McCain's health in 2008, but somehow Hillary Clinton's health is off limits. There's a reason why, according to Gallup, Americans' trust in the news media is at an all-time low right now. And Sean, Hillary Clinton has done herself no favors by being an individual who has concealed so much information. Her private email server, the Clinton Foundation.
Exit question for all of you. Simple question. Do you think we're being told the entire truth about Hillary's health? Ebony?
No, she has a consistent transparency problem, Sean.
Mercedes?
I agree with Ebony. I think that there's the ultimate cover-up, and this is a narrative that Hillary Clinton keeps pushing forward.
Lisa?
I don't think Hillary Clinton is capable of the truth.
No.
Lisa, get an opinion.
I don't think it's in her DNA.
All of you, especially Lisa. Lisa gets the gold star for that one. All right, thank you all. And coming up, we have a very important question of the day. We need your help. That's next. All right, time for our question of the day. Given the new polls, are you feeling optimistic now about Donald Trump's chances in 54 days come November 8th? Just go to Facebook.com/Sean Hannity, @Sean Hannity on Twitter. Let us know what you think. That's all the time we have for this evening. We will be back, and we'll see you here tomorrow night. Thanks for being with us.